Hello viewers, welcome back. We are now continuing with our series of Excel fundamentals, and what we are going to look at today, we are going to look at formula auditing. So we just finished discussing our preference for vertical stacking when we are building a model, and we also looked at assembling a navigational column here on the left hand side. We say this is our navigational column. When you hit the page up and page down buttons, you can be able to move through on those different sections within our financial model using that navigational column on our left hand side. What we are going to look at now is the adjustment, or is actually it's the alignment of the model. For example, right here in column H, if you try to look at this column H, you want to comment about the alignment of that model. We see that within that column H, we have only information that is relating to 2024 forecast. So we want to discuss how that alignment can actually help with model editing or auditing of the model. So we want to basically look at stacking these models vertically and making sure that each column is representing information for an individual year. We want to look at how important is that, because you look at column F, we have information for 2022, column G, we have information for 2023 throughout, and that's how the model has been aligned. So want to take a look at how that alignment is actually going to help us in auditing our financial model. So without wasting time, let's jump in and take a look. Now, the idea here is that, as you can see, if we try to highlight this column H, if you want to highlight the column H using the keyboard, you just come in that column, you press anywhere in that column, then you hold Control spacebar, that big button, spacebar. You hold down the Control, then you hit the spacebar. That highlights any cell as long as you've selected. Now I've selected the column I. If I hold down Control, then I press the backspace button, then it will highlight the whole column. To highlight the row, we said we use Shift. Within that cell we want to highlight, let's assume we want to highlight this row 43, 44. We just hold down the Shift key, then we hit the backspace button, or that big button. It highlights the entire column, entire row, sorry. So if we try to highlight this column H, Control spacebar highlights the entire. You can see we've highlighted the entire information from all the way from the assumptions down to the last point where we computed the percentages. We've highlighted information for 2024 in that column. So that column H has only information that is relating to 2024 forecasts. So we want to keep that consistency all the way down through the financial model. In other words, we want to be from the top to the bottom, low 1 all the way down to low 2000. In other words, when we are building these financial models, we make sure that we stack these models vertically so that we can have that kind of alignment for the information that we are doing. In other words, until we finish all the values that we have, until we finish all the cells that are in that column. So that's how we are supposed to align the information that we have there. So if you build the income statement, because you may find the model, you may find that our model, if I come here and I hit the page down, you'll see that our model is actually very short. It is ending on row 76. But you may find when the model you have is actually finishing all the rows that we have within our Excel sheet. So you may find that according to the information that we have, we've been able to build the information maybe to let's say this 2,500 in a row 2,500. So even if we build to that deep financial model, we are supposed to keep that alignment in place. And the reason is very simple. The reason as why we are trying to maintain that alignment is not because we only want the consistency, but it's because it really helps us with model auditing. I just want us to take a small example and we try to analyze to see how can that actually help us with the model. How can that actually help us with model editing? So let's try to take an example and we look at how that can actually help us in model editing. So, for example, we want to take an example. We have to take a quick look at some of these things and we see how we can be able to get to these points. Let's try maybe to move a little bit up. We use the page up button. The page up button. So we are in the assumption section of the model. So if we try to go to this area right here, F8, cell F8. So we shall see that the formula right here is the one you're seeing up here is the one that we use to compute the cost of goods sold as a percentage of revenue. That's what they are telling us. Cost of goods sold as a percentage of revenue. So that's the formula that we have. But now, let's pretend that we are going to audit that same formula. Because the formula is already known. Cost of goods sold is as a percentage of revenue. So let's pretend that we want to audit that formula. We want to find out whether this person to get that answer actually went through that same formula they gave us. Now, one of the first ways that we could audit is just to move into that very cell, because we are in cell F8. So we can go in that cell by using F2 key. If you hit the F2 key once, it's going to go into that very cell. And actually we can see that these values are actually connected from this point. You can see that it is F8 F18, which is a blue item, a blue figure, meaning we are getting it from the blue box. This is a red box. So F17 is this one. That is the red box. So you are seeing where we are getting this divided by this, which exactly represents cost of goods sold as a percentage of revenue. So we can actually see that when we use the F2 key to just move into that cell, we can actually be able to audit that. And actually we can see the connections since they are close. Because these connections are close from this point to this one. They are very close. But I want you to take an instance where let's say the connection from this point was beyond this area where we can see on the screen. Maybe it was in row 30 or 35. We couldn't be able to see it from this perspective. We couldn't be seeing these because we need to see these very icons you are seeing, these very boxes you are seeing. They are the ones that are representing the formulas that are within that cell. So if those values were deeper within the schedule, we couldn't be able to use that approach to do our auditing. So, meaning we couldn't be able to see the connections. So, that kind of auditing is not always the case because sometimes we are connecting two spots that are deeper down beyond what we can see on the screen. So if we can't see, then it means there is no way we are going to be able to follow. Because if it was down below, we couldn't jump this way and at the same time be at this point where we can see the connections. So what can really be done if that's the case? So what is going to be helpful is up here from the formula section of the ribbon. That's where we will be able to get the solution. The formula section of the ribbon, in particular, this area here that says formula auditing, this area here is the only area that is going to help us to carry out the formula auditing. So we can now just hit enter for a moment here so that you can actually see this area right here. We can maybe take screenshot. We use print screen. We take a screenshot of this area. So this is the area we are talking about. This is the area that we are actually focusing on. You can paste it here so that everyone can be able to see these values that we are talking about. So it has been pasted here. This is the section that is going to help us carry out those auditing within our model. So that's the area that's going to help us to actually have that formula audited. So it is from the formula section of the ribbon. So we can delete this. So it is this area that is going to help us with that kind of auditing. So what we are going to make use of is the idea of tracing precedents and tracing dependence. In other words, the two things that we are going to use, they are these two icons here: trace precedents or trace dependence. Those are the areas that we are going to use if we are doing formula auditing. And what we are going to do is we are going to remove those arrows once we are done with a particular check. Because now if you go to these trace precedents, it gives these arrows, these blue arrows, we are seeing them. So if you go to trace dependents, you will see that these arrows, they actually come up. So what we are going to do, we are going to make sure that we get those arrows there, but at the same time, we make sure that we remove those at the end of the day. After seeing or after doing the auditing, we remove them. So maybe to get a difference, we are going to get the difference after looking at an example or after getting a demonstration of how this works. So let's try to have a try on those two. So let's go back in this cell F8. That cell F8 right there, what we want to do, we want to do trace precedents. In other words, we are going to do what we call formula auditing. And we are going, the tool we are going to use is trace precedents. So I just want us to first see what happens, then we can be able to elaborate on such items. But remember here, we are not going to use the mouse. We are going to use the keyboard because that's my emphasis. Or that's what I basically want someone to pick. Because using the mouse, that's something you've been using. But you just want to see how we can be able to use the keyboard. So we go to Alt. You first have to select the area that you want to trace its precedents. So we've selected cell F8. So we go to Alt, then we go to M for formulas. And now what you are going to do, we are going to see from this point that trace precedents here is actually having letter P. So we come and hit P. And that P is actually for tracing precedents. And as soon as you tap the Alt M plus P, it shows you all the cells which are leading into that very cell that you've highlighted. This is how it looks like. You are seeing from this point here, it has given you these two dots, the first dot and even the second dot. And you are seeing the arrow is moving upwards, meaning from this cell F8, there are two items that are connected to that cell. It is the revenue in F17 and the cost of goods in F18. So those are the only items that are connected to that cell. So that's one way we can be able to test. So after seeing that these two cells, they're actually connected, because the other one is saying cost of goods sold as a percentage of revenue. As long as you see that these answers coming from revenue and at the same time the cost of goods, then the next thing to do is to come here in that very cell. You get to know, did they do the right math? In other words, if it is as a percentage, you go and do your proofing. How do we proof? You get this, because if cost of goods sold is as a percentage of revenue, you just get this 45% times the revenue. Are we going to get this answer? If you're not getting the answer, then it means they have done a mistake. The other thing is, you get this answer, you divide by this one to be able to have this 45%. You can do it using a calculator, then to find out whether these guys, they actually did the same thing. But this trace precedents is going to help you show which cells are connected to that particular cell that you are auditing. So that's what we do for trace precedents. So Trace precedents helps us to give us direction, and we are seeing the direction of the arrow. They are going from those little dots that we saw down there to where the arrow is directing. So everything that is leading into that cell is represented by dots. Then those dots are actually having a straight line leading to that particular cell that we've been investigating. So this is really helpful, and what we want to look for obviously is a perfect vertical alignment. The other thing that we need to note is, from this perspective, is that we are not going to have a horizontal line. It's always going to be a vertical line. If you find the line is changing, yet you are checking from the same column, then you just know you've done a mistake, because there is no way it can be when these values, they are not coming. You are getting a value within the same cell, but it's coming from different cells. So since we are doing financial modeling, all the models are supposed to be stuck together vertically. That's the preferred approach, because it gives you this kind of auditing, or it allows you to do this kind of auditing. So that vertical alignment is actually shown by that blue line. That blue line with an arrow that is completely vertical. So now, if you are happy that we've done some check, so we can go up here and remove the arrows. We can go the same where we went to put those arrows, is the same way we remove those arrows. So, but here we are not going to use the keyboard. We prefer to use the keyboard. Again, you can use the mouse, but I recommend that you will stick to the keyboard. So we shall go through the same procedure. Alt, we go to Alt M for formulas. Then we are going to go, you see here, down here, they say remove arrows. We have A. So when you press A, it says remove precedent arrow, that is P, remove dependency arrows. But here what we want to remove arrows. So we hit A again. So that's how we remove those arrows. So you've seen it has actually removed itself very fast. So it is actually a very easy example for us to be able to demonstrate that trace precedents. But as I said, by just tapping the F4, the F2 key, we could also see everything like the way you are seeing it from here. You be in that cell, you hit the F2 key. The only challenge is that we are not going to have those arrows, but at least we can be able to see those values since they are within that line of sight for our screen. But now, let's look at a different example, which is a little bit more complex. Now, let's try to use the page down and the page down and page down and page up, because here we are already up. We can't use the page up. Let's use the page down button to move a little bit far from the first screen. We can now maybe try to go to this side of the common size statement, income statement. So we want to do some investigations within the common size income statement. In fact, let's look at one of the examples down below. Let's pretend that we are trying to audit this SG&A, the whole of this line. Maybe let's just say we are auditing the SG&A. And what we want to do in this common size statement, we can go maybe to cell, specifically we go to cell F. Let's just use cell F because let's just use column F because we've been in that column for a while. Let's go to cell F49 and we tap the F2 key. That F2 key says these values were gotten from F21 divided by F17. None of these values are here. All of them are within the upper section of our model. But we can see actually these references, they are off our screen and they are above in other areas, which we can't actually see on our screen at this moment. So this is a very great example where we could use the trace precedents. So, for example, in this case, let's try to hope to move within the cell. Let's hit the enter. And now let's be in that very cell, F49. And what we are going to do, we are going to trace precedents. So what we are going to go to Alt, M for formulas, and now we are going to P for tracing precedents. You are seeing the value here that this arrow is facing downwards, meaning the values that are connecting to this cell, they are upwards. So we can now move. You can use the page up and page down, or you can scroll just like this. You are seeing we picked this value from here and this value, but they are going all the way down to F49, meaning, because remember this common size income statement, as you remember when we were developing this model, we copied that information from our income statement. That's why we are seeing those values. The values we used as inputs were from the income statement. So that's why you can see that we have actually, so you can see that we have so many things that we can actually look at. So let's try to use, maybe let's highlight that cell by using Control spacebar, and we try maybe to move a little bit. We want to see, because we are basically looking at that vertical alignment within that blue arrow. So what we are looking for here, if you go and you don't see that vertical alignment, you see when you're moving in that highlighted section of that F column, we are seeing that everything is in straight line, meaning it is a vertical alignment. So what will be the red flag, or what will show us that we've done a mistake? So what we are looking for as a flag would be potentially a diagonal blue arrow, indicating that the person had attached to the wrong period. If you see that the line is there, but it is attaching other values, then you just know that you've done a mistake somewhere. So that diagonal blue arrow will actually indicate that someone has done. It will be a red flag for us to know that there is actually a mistake. So there is no need for you just pick only one figure and you start doing the auditing on that very same value. So we have gone ahead and checked the alignment of the arrow first. Now we want now to quickly use the page up, and page down buttons. Of course, those ones we can keep them. We can use them as we page up, then page down. We'll be moving downwards and backwards as we're moving through the model. So what we are going to do, so We've now done the auditing of that. So we are now going to remove the arrows. Now, remember, I want to go to this point here for removing arrows here. But we want to use the keyboard because we don't want to do anything. We use the same shortcut, Alt, M for formulas, and A to remove arrows, then A, and the moment you press the last A, you will see that even the arrow has actually disappeared. So that's what we basically wanted to look at from that perspective. So since the arrows are now gone, so I hope you can be able to appreciate just how helpful this section can be here for auditing. Now, we want to demonstrate trace dependency because we have now finished tracing precedents. Because also tracing dependence can also be helpful as well. For example, if you are in this cell here, let's assume you are in this cell. Let's use the page up button to move a little bit up. Let's assume that you are in this cell here. Let's just go with these ones that are highlighted. L35, cell L35, and say you want to trace dependency. So you go to Alt, M for formulas. Then instead of going for P, we are now going for D, dependency, because that is the D. Trace dependence has a letter D, so we go for D. Now, that's the very big difference that we have. They are all using arrows, but the arrows are moving in different directions. This is what we want to understand. So, as we can see now, the dependency over this cell right here, D38, this cell here, D38, there is this 38 depends on this. That's why you are seeing that arrow is crossing over that in that format, because this is the EBITDA in 2028, and that is the 2028 that we are talking about. So there is that leakage. In other words, this one is linked to this. That's the implication. That's why you are seeing the arrow is moving from this point and it is facing this side, meaning this arrow is depending on this. If this one changes, this one is also going to change. That's the dependency that we are talking about. So now what we want to do next is maybe to try and remove these arrows, because we've seen the arrows. We use the same thing, Alt, then we go to M for formulas, A to remove arrows, and A to remove arrows. And the moment you press that last A, you'll find that the arrows are now removed. So now we want to explore. Maybe we'll try to explore with the mouse. If you try to move around with the mouse, so let's try to first go exploring this side with the mouse. You see, when you read through that trace precedent, that dialog box that appears, immediately if you don't click, but you just put the mouse cursor there. If you read it through, the trace precedents show arrows that indicate which cells affect values of currently selected cell. In other words, they are continuing to say, use Control plus left square bracket to navigate to precedents of the selected cell. Then let's just go down here to trace dependency. Trace dependency show arrows that indicate which cells that affected by the value of the currently selected cell. and they are continuing to say use control plus left square bracket to navigate to dependents of the selected cells. Let's try to understand control plus left square bracket. Left square bracket is actually that there is a slash, a backslash. It's actually it looks like a forward slash. It is above the enter key. It's a box, as you can see it. It is square bracket. In other words, it has two corners. So if you use the control plus either left or right square brackets, what will happen? Those are the things that maybe we are going to actually focus on, because we've seen that there are those shortcuts. For example, under the trace precedents, we can see that there is a shortcut here, control plus left square bracket, and that helps you to navigate to two cells, precedent cells. And then up here for dependence, we can use the control plus right square bracket to navigate to the dependencies of selected cells. So let's try those two and we'll see what happens. So if we try those shortcuts starting from down here in this cell, maybe we can just go to this cell. Let's just move down a bit. Use page down. Use page down. Maybe we start from here. The one we've been talking about. That D38. When we are in that D38, so what are we going to do? Let's use control left square bracket and we see what happens. You've seen, I'll put here the cursor. When I hit control left square bracket, the cursor, this one, moves to that corresponding cell. Remember, the figure that was in here is the figure that goes here. If this figure changes, even this one has to change. So when I put the cursor here and I hit control left square bracket, it is going to take me to that corresponding item, control left square bracket. Now you see the cursor is moving very fast. So it goes up to the precedent cell. And then to go to the dependent cell, now we have to hit the right square bracket. Now, if you want to move from this, remember, when I put here, this is a precedent because the value here comes from this one. So now if I put the cursor here and I use control right square bracket, it takes me to this side. It means that the value here, in other words, what is reflecting in this box here is actually affecting what is here. So that's the analysis I wanted us to have. So that movement you've just seen, the last movement of moving from this point here using control right square bracket, of moving to this side of cell D38, we can see that that is the dependent cell. So what we are going to do now, let's jump over to the next video and we are going to show you how we can actually put in some another formatting features that you can add to this financial model to make it even more professional and easy to navigate. We want it to look, this model to look a bit more professional and easy for the users to actually navigate through. So what are we going to do in the next video? We are going to do what we call row grouping. In other words, we are going to have there are some icons that are going to come on this very side in this navigational column that are going to help us. Actually, they are not coming from this navigational column, they come this side. So let's see you in the next video as we do those items. Because you are seeing from that perspective, we are going to be seeing that moving from this point using this up and down arrow, it is a little bit tricky. So in other words, what we are going to be doing, we are going to collapse these values, but we put something that we call, like, looks like a drop down, that if I click on this one, I can collapse this, I can collapse this, but when I click on that, I can actually open it wide. So that's what we are going to be doing. So we see you in the next video as we are looking at row grouping.